Hi there, my name is Fabian Comu and you're watching my presentation on the investigation into the treatment of Premier League footballers during the COVID-19 pandemic. The aim of this presentation is to point out the unfair media scrutiny a small group of young men are currently facing due to their profession. In this presentation, I will firstly introduce and explain the global importance of football until I focus more specifically on the Premier League. From then we will begin drilling down into the prosecution of Premier League footballers and then specifically a case study of one footballer, Mesut Ozil. This presentation will then look at the facts not found on the front pages until finally culminating in a reflection. The purpose of this presentation is to make you, the audience, wonder why we as a society have vilified a group of young men for being good at a sport, but also how easy it is to scapegoat groups and individuals in contemporary society. So with that, let's jump into the presentation. Alright, firstly, introducing football. Association football is the largest sport in the world, with around 3.5 billion supporters globally. 46.7% of the world's population broke TV viewing history to watch the 2018 World Cup final in Russia 2 years ago. To give you an idea of the scale, this beats the second most watched sporting event, the Tour de France, by almost 1 billion people. Now, in essence, we are talking about a game where 22 people kick a ball between two posts for 90 minutes. Yet it still commands a wealth of social, economic and political power. Football has shown it has the power to end wars, unite nations and most importantly, bring happiness to the global populace. I think nothing explains the power of football greater than this quote from ex-Liverpool and Scotland manager Bill Shankly. Some people think football is a matter of life and death. I can assure them it is much more serious than that. Now, within this huge market of football, the most lucrative and often dubbed exciting league in the world is the Premier League, which last year alone generated £4.9 billion in revenue. However, stripping all that money away, at its core, the Premier League consists of 20 teams and 557 registered players. It is the media discourse surrounding these 557 individuals I want to take a look at in a greater depth. Now, despite the average annual player salary of clubs ranging massively from Manchester City's £8.73 million a year to Sheffield United's £910,000 a year, it is fair to say that this group of young men ranging from 17 to 14 age are amongst the wealthy in society. And it is this wealth that is at the centre of their scapegoating during this COVID-19 pandemic. Footballers have always been criminalised for their lifestyle choices and financial choices, always making the headlines in the tabloids for their wild nights out and expensive tastes. However, since the devastation of this pandemic, this victimisation has gone from subtle to blatant. Calls for footballers to defer their wages and give up their income have come from all sides. This is symbolised perfectly by Health Secretary Matt Hancock using the government's daily coronavirus update to thrust footballers centre stage and demand they give up their wages. He is quoted saying, "Given the sacrifices that many people are making, I think the first thing that Premier League footballers can do is make a contribution, take a pay cut and play their part." To give some context, this daily government briefing has a national audience. It's the medium in which the vast majority of the population are getting instructions and information on the most important topics surrounding COVID-19. Therefore, for the leaders of a nation to use this platform to attack and put pressure on an extreme minority group is staggering and, quite frankly, unacceptable. Now, it's hardly breaking news that footballers are wealthy individuals. They're not the only people with wealth. In fact, no Premier League footballer ranks in the Sunday Times top 1,000 richest people in the UK. So it begs the question, why are footballers singled out for public scrutiny and pressured to defer wages when others aren't? A 2018 BBC report claimed there are in fact over 3.6 million households claiming to be millionaires. None of these individuals have faced the front pages, so why is the collective of 557? The irony is that despite Matt Hancock earning a six-figure salary, 2 weeks after making this statement, he himself reported he personally would not take a pay cut. Now, in this presentation, I want to have a closer look at one particular footballer, Mesut Ozil. Mesut Ozil was a 31-year-old German international who plays for one of the Premier League's most successful clubs, Arsenal. Ozil's honours include a World Cup, 3 FA Cups, a La Liga, a Copa del Rey, a Super Cup, and he's also 5-time German Footballer of the Year winner. To put it simply, he's a very good footballer. Now, it's important to know that Mesut Ozil is no stranger to victimisation, as he's regularly been used as a scapegoat in both the footballing world and in the context of the media. As mentioned before, despite Ozil winning the World Cup with Germany and winning German Player of the Year 5 times, he was singled out as one of the main reasons for Germany's shortcomings at the 2016 European Championships. Ozil claimed it was due to his Turkish-German heritage. He is quoted in saying, "I am German when we win, immigrant when we lose." This is a completely separate topic that this presentation won't explore, but it should paint a picture of the type of media reporting Ozil is used to. What I want to focus on is his treatment during this pandemic. Now, to do that, it's important to note that Mesut Ozil is the highest earner at Arsenal, taking home over £300,000 a week prior to tax, and due to his global popularity, has amassed one of the largest net worths in the Premier League, with Forbes reporting his worth in 2018 standing at $30.2 million. During this pandemic, whilst multi-million pound football clubs such as Liverpool and Tottenham were furloughing staff, Arsenal FC were the third club in the Premier League to announce that player and staff had agreed a 12.5% wage deferral, following the lead of Southampton and West Ham. Despite 3 Arsenal players not agreeing to the wage deferral, only one player was named and shamed in the headlines: Mesut Ozil. Tabloids crucified him. Celebrities like Piers Morgan, the host of Good Morning Britain, publicly vilified him, thus generating mass public hate for the footballer. As it transpired, Ozil was willing to take a higher wage deferral than everyone at Arsenal FC. It's just he wanted certain economic assurances to where the money would actually end up. This again shows the media is more than eager to put these footballers to the sword and tarnish their name on the front and back pages. However, on the other hand, they are somewhat slow at reporting a story in its entirety, and then in turn even slower at rectifying the misinformed views of their consumers due to the selective information they initially provided them with. In this section, I want to focus on doing something that media outlets should be doing more of: reporting on the charitable and positive acts of footballers. The truth is that footballers are very wealthy individuals, there's no denying that, but they are also very charitable individuals who already donate large sums of money and are key contributors to their communities. Hundreds of Premier League players have come together to support the Players Together initiative. This is an initiative set up by Premier League players to give charitable donations and support our underfunded NHS during this COVID-19 pandemic. One individual who has gone above and beyond this is Marcus Rashford. The 22-year-old Manchester United striker has raised over £20 million for hungry families in this situation in crisis. If we look back at the case of Mesut Ozil and his charitable acts within the past 12 months, they do include paying for 1,000 vital operations for children across the world, feeding 100,000 homeless people at 16 refugee camps in Turkey and Syria, paying almost £250,000 to fund operations for sick children in Brazil, and his continued work for children's charity, Rays of Sunshine. My personal favourite fact about this entire saga and persecution for footballers to take a pay cut is that the PFA, the Players Football Association, have reported that if footballers were to take the proposed 30% wage reduction that the government wanted them to take, it would actually result in a loss of £200 million in taxes, and therefore be inherently detrimental to the NHS. Footballers have always been on the receiving end of negative press, yet conveniently, all the positive that Premier League footballers do isn't reported with the same intensity. Whilst it is easy to point the finger at those living lucrative lives that we ourselves would give anything to be living, is it right to single out this minority? It's not as if this is their fault, they should be held accountable for a situation we find ourselves in, considering they're just a group of young men playing a sport to entertain the millions. If anything, I'd argue there is a different group of individuals we should be held responsible, but again, this is a discourse for another debate. If we're going to scrutinise someone in a financially advantageous position, shouldn't everyone on their financial level be assessed with the same ire? This group of 557 young men represent only 0.015% of all households with over £1 million of wealth in the UK, and this is under the assumption that all Premier League footballers are millionaires. To give you some context, I made this pie chart to show you their insignificance. So my question is, why are they singled out? The questions I want you to ask yourself and reflect upon in this presentation is, how much are you giving? What are you doing during this lockdown to support your local community? And would you be willing to take a pay cut? Because Matt Hancock certainly isn't. I want to end this presentation by this quote from Bob Marley. Who are you to judge the life I live? I know I'm not perfect, and I don't live to be, but before you start pointing fingers, make sure your hands are clean. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.